So, welcome to another Off the Job podcast. Today we've got a very special guest indeed, because he's from across the
The other
pond.
side of the world.
He's already doing it. He's from across the pond in America. I've followed him for a long time on Instagram. He's PS the plumber, also known as Chris Armstrong. Yeah? Can you hear us, Chris?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
And we've asked him on today because we would like to know a little bit of how it works in America, if you don't mind. So, yeah, what's the old? When did you start plumbing as a kid? Are you second generation, third generation? How did you start in this world?
I am first generation in the plumbing and HVAC world. I just had an offer. I was doing a lot of different jobs before I get too scrambled up here. I just did anything I could for money when I was a kid because I needed money, you know. And then there was a gent that had a small plumbing outfit in Westchester County, New York, right above New York City. And he needed help, a plumber's helper. Basically, all I did was carry tools and smash cast iron bathtubs and carry toilets and things for a little while. But I did that and paid attention and learned and kept doing it, and still doing it now. So that was in 1998.
So where did you grow up? Sort of a bit of a background, what it was like growing up in America.
I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, so about a little over an hour north of New York City.
Yeah, what was it like growing up in America? Because I think when you from another country, sometimes you get the wrong idea about another country. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Was you there during the 9/11 attacks? Was you in the city in the 9/11 attacks? Did you experience what aftermath of it did you experience from that?
Yeah, I was actually working, and I was in my van, and I heard it on the radio while it happened. It was like, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, you have those kind of emergency breakthroughs on the radio, and they were saying that a plane had hit the towers. And I remember, you know, it seemed like everything stopped. You know, a lot of people were just pulled over, and it was a big thing for sure. And as far as like, I knew people that worked in the towers personally, you know, that some didn't make it out, you know. So it was a wild time. And right before then, I was working for the municipal water district, basically the aqueduct that supplies the New York City drinking water. And the time shortly after 9/11, that was a wild time too, because we had, you know, armed military personnel with, you know, M16s guarding all of the water supply, basically. And part of my job at that time for a little while was going around and bolting. We had to lock and bolt all the manhole covers with access to any of the water pumps and things like that for those systems. It was an interesting time, because it was you feel like everything was being watched, and you know, it was an emotional bit. You know, a lot of people. It's a smaller world than you think. You know, somebody knows someone everywhere when it really comes down to it. So a lot of people were affected by that, especially where I am, because we're so close to the city, you know.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it was
I remember when it happened, because that would have been probably the second year of my apprenticeship when it happened, and I was working in London. So I was working in London, and it was all on the news. And my girlfriend at the time, she phoned me. She went, "Have you heard what's happened?" And me being me, I'd never even heard of the World Trade Center, and she told me exactly what had happened. I was like, what? And then you get home, and it's like, wow, this is big news. This is massive, like, sort of thing. And then we're all over here. We're looking at planes flying through the air and stuff at the time as well, because you're thinking, is it going to happen here? Do you know what I mean? What's going to happen, sort of thing. So, yeah, that's quite interesting to hear your side of that. And was there like works after? Did you have to do any, like, I know you said you'd done the bolting of the drains and stuff like that. Was there any other works that you had to do with regards to the city after that?
It was mostly I think the main fear was contaminating the water system for the city, because obviously if someone was to pull some sort of terrorist stunt and poison the water supply or do something to disrupt it, there'd be millions and millions of people in big trouble, you know? So, it was just the whole dynamic of the security of everything was pretty intense for a while. And you just never knew, you know, it's just the same thing when, if somebody did, you know, when they do the terrorist attacks in the tube, you know, or whatever. And, you know, you get on the subway and you're like, you know, are you nervous?
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
cautious,
you're looking
yeah.
around. It really, you know, brings a lot of tension into the daily life of just trying to function, you know, where you're always worried about, well, what's going to happen.
You have enough going on,
You
let
know,
alone worrying about that.
yeah, it's, you know, the last thing you want to do is hop on the subway and worry about, you know, is something going to blow up or, you know, what's happening here, you know?
Yeah.
You never really know.
So was you so during that time was that your apprenticeship time, was it, or was that just after your apprenticeship time? What was your apprenticeship like? How does apprenticeship work over there? Does it do you go to like college? How does that work over there?
So you can do it in a bunch of different ways. You can go to a tech college and do, you know, your 4 years or whatever there, or you can do a union apprenticeship and you can do your, you know, your formal time being paid to work as an apprentice, obviously, or you can work under licensed master plumber. So if I hire on a guy and I'm a non-union shop, you can work under me. And I mean, there's things that need to be done, but that your time working with me will count toward your apprenticeship. And then that will allow you to sit in for testing at some point so that you can get master licensing or journeyman licensing or something like that.
Yeah, so do they...
So
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, those are pretty much your three routes. It's either go to college, join the union and do a traditional apprenticeship, or you can work for a non-union shop. And then once you get the time in and the person that's leading you, so if I hired somebody, it would be under my license. Once I feel that you've been taught and learned enough over a certain amount of time, then I can have you basically sign off on you to be able to try to test in. So you have to have a certain amount of time to be able to seat for the test. So it would be like usually 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you're qualified to be to sit down and take a test. That doesn't mean you're going to pass it, but so it's based on time and things like that. So those are the options that you have to try to sit in to get your apprenticeship completed.
Is it hard to get jobs out there as an apprentice? Because over here it's not that easy, is it, to get apprenticeships? Is there a lot of opportunities for people getting in the trade, or?
There are loads of opportunity to become an apprentice and get into the trade here for sure, because there's a huge lack of just new blood coming in, and we're trying all these different ways to kind of entice kids to get in by, hey, you could make this amount of money in a year or per hour or per week. You know, you could do well. It's just getting people on board, because a lot of people tend to think, I should say the general public that doesn't necessarily know the trade, thinks that all we do is plunge toilet bowls all day and get mess upon us. And that's not the case. You know, a lot of times we're doing, you know, brand new clean work most of the time, or even if you're doing just mostly service, you're not always getting messed, you know?
Yeah. In that apprenticeship, do they give you the opportunity to do your gas? Do you do that at the same time, or is it a different qualification altogether from doing the actual plumbing side of it?
It's totally separate. I have a totally separate gas license. I mean, it's, you know, one and the same as far as that we're doing that work, but that's a separate license.
Right.
Do you have to have that license to be able to work on gas? Is it the same?
Yes.
And do you get like retested every like so many years? Is it you have to refresh your license? Do you have to renew it, or do you have to like take like some sort of refresher course?
Yes, there is like a continuing education thing, and then they'll have to do refresher courses pretty much just like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to do it every 5 years, a
5
refresher,
years.
and we renew our registrations every year. So, but you're getting into, by the sounds of it, you're getting into the heat pump side of things now out there as well. I think you said you was going to do a job or something to do with that.
Yes, I mean, I also do quite a bit of HVAC work myself. A lot of companies, there's a lot of different plumbing companies out here. So there's some companies that only do just plumbing, just water filters, plumbing repairs, water heaters, things like that. And then there's companies that only do mechanical work and only do the boilers, the combis, radiant and things like that. And then there's guys that only do gas and only do oil. And then there's strictly HVAC companies. And then there's companies like me that kind of do a little bit of everything for the most part. So I do service, mostly installations and renovation work. And I do service in between, but it's a smaller part of my business. And I also do, furnaces, boilers, radiant. I pretty much do everything. So a lot of guys will kind of just do the bits that they feel that they can make the most with or that they know the best. And so every company is a little bit different as far as what the offerings are.
So with the gas, when you get your gas qualification, do you have to hold a plumbing qualification to get your gas, or you can just go straight into gas and do gas as it is?
You can do just gas. But the issue is, let's say you're going to install, say you just sold a new combi boiler. If you do not have your plumbing license, excuse me, you cannot do the water tie-ins. So you can do the hydronics portion, but then you would have to pay a licensed plumber to come in and connect the water to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
same with the gas and the electricity. So it would all be, it's a real nuisance if you don't have, if you're doing, for example, boilers, or if you want to do boilers and things like that, if you don't have the other credentials, then you have to hire or incorporate these other people into your price to come in and do these other tie-ins.
Yeah.
So you can't put the mains feed into a combi boiler.
You said they're heavily cancelled than us. They're heavily more cancelled than us.
I thought we was regulated. That's
on the water over here.
Yes.
On the water over here, you don't need to be qualified. Do you know what I mean? You can be gas qualified and you can still run into the main. You can do whatever you want to do on that heating. Bathroom fitters over here, a lot of them don't hold qualifications. They just go in, put a bathroom in, and that's it. You don't need that over here. The only thing you need is your gas. That's
to
all
fit
you
a
need.
Bathroom, though, you don't need a plumbing qualification to do that, do you, in America?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you were going to do a renovation and a new bath, and you were going to refit, new toilet, new sink, new rough in for those
the main
tub, and you have to pull a permit and have a license to do any of that work.
Would you say that's a good
before you
thing or
even
bad
start?
thing?
You have to get the approval for the permit to even do it.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing because that will eliminate the chances, won't it? Because like your prices out there are a lot higher than ours. I've noticed on various chats and that the jobs that you do out there are a hell of a lot more money than what we charge for them. But obviously you are more heavily regulated out there than what we are out here.
That's the truth. I sometimes I'll hear your videos and you're like, I just fitted this Valent and it was, 600 quid. And I'm like man, how could you do that for that cheap?
Yeah.
Considering the stock you're using. And I'm like, my permit fees alone, let's just say I was going to change, 40-gallon electric tanked water heater, basic old school cylinder. Just to be able to do that job, I have to pay out to about $125 in a permit fee. I have to take, a half an hour to go file the permit and get the approval, and then get the material. By the time I do all that, it'll take the gist of my day. So there's no money to be made if it's our economy, really, the way it works. Between all the fees and the money that it costs us to do everything, you just can't profit. It's interesting. There's the general public, I have this talk often with customers that complain about my price, and I have to say to them, and I say, you're the people that want everyone in the drive-through at McDonald's. You want them all to make, $30 an hour, and you're happy to pay, a 15-year-old kid that, and that's what they should make, you say. But then I've been doing this for over 25 years. I have $500,000 in tools and equipment, and I'm good at my job. And you're saying that $259 for a service call is too much, but it might take me 40 minutes to get to your house, 40 minutes to get back, and I'm there for an hour. That takes up almost half my day.
Yeah.
If I was to only do 2 jobs and only work the 8 hours that, you people think is suitable for the workday, then that would mean I could only make, $500 and something. So our government, by the time if I stay home, put it this way, if I'm sick and I don't go to work, it costs me about between $150 and $200 a day in expenses if I don't go to work. So that comes off the top. So if I only made 500, I take that 200 off the top. That leaves me with about 300 to be paid. And then they take 30 something % of that in taxes, minus my gas, which is usually about $50 a day. I'll make about $100.
Yeah. Moan about that, because they moan about our prices out here as well. It's the same out here, even though we are a hell of a lot cheaper than you. The customers out here believe that if we said to them, we're going to charge you £300-400 a day, so they'll look at us as if to say, like, what kind of money? That's an extortionate amount of money for a day's work for a man.
Like you said, it's your travel time. People just look at it as you're there for an hour, but they don't look at it as you're traveling there, traveling back, going to get materials. Like, it's all this time that costs you money.
Yeah, it's that cost of operation is tremendous here, in the sense that, for example, I have 4 trucks, and my commercial auto insurance, just to have them, not including registration, to have them drivable, but I mean, it's like $700 a month just to have the insurance on the vehicle, and then my license fees, my workers' compensation, payroll taxes, unemployment insurance. It's, workers' compensation is $21 per 100 that we make.
Do you have guys
so
work?
That's 21.
Do you have guys work for you as well?
I used to have normally between 5 and 7 people on payroll, and the past few years it's mostly been just me, because 2 of my main guys went back to the union, and a couple other guys, people come and go, but right now it's mostly just me.
What was the workers' compensation that you said?
The workers' compensation insurance is really expensive, and then payroll tax. For example, I have a payroll service that writes me a check every week that comes out of my account, so I have to pay like $40 a week just to get the check to me. And if I claim, depending on how I file my taxes, if you claim 0 and pay $380 a week in taxes, I corporately have to match that. So my own check, if I pay 300 in deductions for the week, I also have to match it through my corporation. So I pay double. That's how that works.
It's crazy, isn't it? I'd never get on out there. I wouldn't be able to handle that.
No, so you're saying, £300 a week or a day for work. Like, the way I have to figure it to even maintain profitability, the goal is to make $2,000 a day on a normal day, to be able to pay. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you might make $4,000 in a day, and you might make almost nothing another day. So it depends.
We were saying that earlier.
We have to. It's tough to price hourly.
Yeah.
So, because all those logistics they don't factor in, or it just sounds crazy to people. So, but again, I have to have this talk with people all the time, and I'm like, well, you can call one of those huge companies, and I know that they're charging $4,000 to do this, and I just told you I would do it for $2,800. So.
Yeah, same out here with like big corporation, British Gas, etc. When they go in and quote a job, it was always a case of, if British Gas are going in to price a job up, we knew we'd probably get it, like, because we'd go in and be able to be a lot cheaper than them.
Yeah, when you see a quote from them, you're like, yes, I'm going to beat that.
Yeah, but I went and done. I priced a job the other day, which was a heating install, full heating install with priority hot water and system boiler with all the radiators and all that. So everything's supplied, and I give him a ballpark figure because I thought I don't want to go too deep into what the actual detail of the quote is, because he can just go over to someone and go, can you beat that?
Match this.
Do you know what I mean? So I said, it's 10.5 grand. That's what it is. The whole job is 10.5 grand. If you want me to do the job, accept it, and then I'll give you a detailed quote, because that way, then you're sort of like covering your back that he's not going to actually go off somewhere and go, this is what he's given me. What can you do it for? And just trim off all the, do you know what I mean? So it does work a bit differently, massively different out here to what it does to you. But it's interesting stuff. I see a lot of you guys, I know we all do the socials and all that, don't we? I see a lot of you guys out there that you love a bit of waste pipe out there, don't you, Chris? You American guys, you like doing like waste pipe, like videos and that. I see a lot of it, but I've never quite understood it, because there are different codes. You use different things on joining pipe. Like you got your purple stuff, your primer and all that, haven't you, out there? Could you do a bit of explaining on that to us, like how that all works, etc.?
So it again, even back to a minute ago, we were talking about, you know, how the amount of cost and how difficult it is with licensing. It depends on where you are. Like, I'm closer to big population, so closer to the cities, it's much more difficult and expensive to do things. If you live in a more rural area, it's not as hard or expensive to function, because it's more rogue out there. They just kind of do what they want. As far as waste pipe, in New York City, everything is mostly cast iron or copper DWV. Where I am, we can use Schedule 40 PVC, and it's usually going to be code to use purple primer. I mean, there's the UV detectable unpurple primer now that people can use, where you can shine a light on it and see that it was primed. But yeah, that's code. But I noticed our waste piping is drastically different. Our venting compared to what you guys do. Some of the drain pipes I see and how it's set up, and I'm like, how the hell? Like, it's almost like it shouldn't work, because every fixture, everything we do here, we have to vent each fixture semi-meticulously, so that, you know, theoretically it'll work.
Yeah, so you're not going to get
a lot of it.
Yeah,
Sounds like we're rogue builders over here.
yeah.
compared
You're
to
not
them.
getting anti-siphon, like you're not like getting back anti-siphon. We have like on traps, we have like anti-siphons, don't we, and stuff. But we only have to vent one house at a time, like sort of thing. So that house only has to have one vent on it. And a lot of people are putting Durgo valves on stuff and getting away with it. Do you have them out there, Durgo valves or air admittance valves?
Yes, yeah, we can. So recently, in the recent years, they've become legal, I should say, in New York State. So everything was like atmospheric vents.
Yeah.
So we would basically have to do branch and circuit vents and then rack them up above flood rim in an attic or space above the ceiling and tie them all together, you know, with slope and everything else, and then penetrate to the outside like that on each fixture. So it adds a lot of work.
Yeah.
Now it's not at my discretion how I can use them, but I can use them in certain circumstances. I can't use a mechanical vent or an AAV just because I'm lazy and I don't want to run a vent.
Yeah.
So it's required, if I have 4-inch PVC going out, I have to have a 4-inch vent going through the roof, at least one main vent.
Yeah.
As far as my other, like if I have an island sink or something like that, somewhere where it's not practical or just not really feasible to run a proper hard vent, then I can get away with using an AAV. But if I'm in an area and I'm doing a renovation and we're putting a half a bath on a downstairs room, and it's in the roof line is right there, they're not going to just say, yeah, just put the vent box in the wall or put it under the lav, and that's okay. They're going to want me to stub up and either connect to the existing venting system or penetrate the roof line.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We're not that.
No, I told
Even
you.
like air
I
vents,
told
people-
you, didn't I? I told you they're much more heavily counselled out there than us, didn't I? But it's interesting stuff when we see it though. Over there, you watch some of our stuff out here, and we've got obviously our events that we go to. I've seen you go to certain events out in the States. We've got Installer Show, FEX, etc. What was this show that you go to out there? What was that one?
We have AHR, which is our biggest North American. It's mostly HVAC show. It's massive.
Yeah.
And then we have a show called Wet, and that's like more. It's not even necessarily plumbing. It's more like drain cleaning, lining, and things like that there. But that's a pretty big show also.
Yeah, is it like a social event like it is out here? Because everyone seems to just want to meet up out here and have a bit of a piss up and all that. Is that what it's like out there?
Very much so, yeah. So yeah, and I follow a lot of the UK plumbers, and so installer to you guys, that's what our AHR is. So there's a lot of, mostly guys just meet up and we drink about 300 pints of Guinness and go to little, companies will host happy hours and little kind of did have, sliders and, drinks and things like that. And we do like 50 of those in the course of 3 days.
Do you manage to do like with this social, like, because this social media thing is a massive thing now, isn't it? Do you manage to work alongside companies out there that like manufacturers, etc. yourself? Do you work with any companies at all or anything like that?
I mean, I do stuff with companies, but I'm not on here, commercials, and they want to make a bunch of money, and they want to be like, oh, Heinz beans, they're the only beans for, it's.
Are you in your kitchen?
It's like if they're gonna make $100 or you know what I mean, they want to. I'm not really into that so much. If I do anything with a company, I generally, it's got to be a product that I really like and I want to use. And otherwise, there's a lot of companies like, companies trying to get me to use their shoes and their work shoes. Every day there's somebody sending it. And I'm like, for starters, I have gigantic feet. You don't even offer shoes my size. And if you did, I'm not going to wear those things. So I'm not interested. There's a lot of people that want to send you random shit, and
you've got to be authentic, haven't you?
I had people phoning me up because they wanted a picture of my shoes and feet. I don't know if that's a company or anything or just some sort of.
Sounds like OnlyFans.
You know what I mean? I had one of them once, but no, it's good. It's good. But with social media out there, it works a little bit differently as well. I think guys get paid. A lot of guys get paid for just doing the social media out there, don't they? Like the Instagram and all that stuff. They make money off of videos, etc.
It's the same.
Yeah. So last year, I mean, again, I do what I can on here. I'm not, there's times where, I'll get videos with lots of views and stuff like that. If you're really consistent in doing the algorithm thing, but I don't really care that much. I do what I can. Like, it's not my top priority to amuse people on Instagram. So it's, sometimes I might not post for a little while and, I might not get a lot of exposure, but about a year ago, we would get paid. If you're qualifying, you get the view counts, and I would make $100, $200 a month just for posting the stuff I'm posting anyway.
All right.
And then they stopped it. They brought it back now. So if you're one of those guys that's getting hundreds of thousands of views and millions of views and shares on some of these posts, you could do pretty well.
Yeah, I think that happens on Facebook and TikTok a lot, but they didn't do it to Instagram out here, so it was a bit of a case of, I think a lot of people turned over to Facebook because Facebook was doing it of some sort. Not too sure.
And if you can make it and you're doing that, then take it. I've never really got. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't make money from Instagram, but I might have made a few $1,000s in the course of the whole time that first monetization became available.
Yeah.
So I know guys that were doing a lot more than that, but I know people that they don't even necessarily have huge followings, or at the time, they might've had, 15 to 20,000 followers, and between and companies, some of these guys are making, $15,000, $20,000 a month.
Really?
So, verifiable. And it's,
over there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put.
There's guys that have made a lot more social media than they do at a very well-paying job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been that guy. I've really, I mean, I'm not saying I haven't gotten some free stuff and try some products and stuff, but I really haven't made any money, or I haven't really tried. And then some people that have offered me I don't have the time and the patience to, Amazon shops and, how many people are going to buy this,
Yeah.
this pen, and I get a penny off each. I don't even want to deal with that. So
No.
What
it's just not something that I get into too much.
you said obviously earlier out there that the prices are generally higher than over here. What's the average salary of like a plumber or a gas engineer out there?
That's another thing that goes, again, this is a big country.
Yeah.
So our areas, even in New York State, somebody down by the city might make $150,000 or $200,000 a year. Whereas if you go an hour and a half north or 2 hours north, you might make, $60,000 to $80,000 a year. And then you go to other states, and it might be, $45,000 or $50,000. So it
Depends.
it's pretty drastic depending on where you are. If you're closer to a bigger city, you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's generally the same with that. Here.
Cost-
If we work in London,
yeah.
we generally charge more, but a lot of people will say well, by the time you've actually driven in, and by the time you've paid parking, and by the time you've done this, you might as well not go in. And I don't know whether that's why you don't work in the city so much no more. Is that one of the reasons why? Because of like costs, etc.
I'm like I said, it's just too much. It's too much driving. Like I live too far north to where I'm not saying I don't drive an hour every day anyway, but it's the parking, getting your tools nicked. It's your van, your truck getting broken into. It's $30 every time you cross the bridge or tunnel to go into New York City in my truck. And then sometimes if you're going from, like, say, the George Washington Bridge and you're going into New York City, and then you go to the next bridge to get into Brooklyn, they charge you a crazy amount of money just in tolls. And then parking, it doesn't exist. It's just like parking. You're walking. It's awful. There's nowhere to park. There's, it's.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I would rather make less money and work somewhere farther away than have to work I would never work in the city again.
Less stress. I moan about paying £3 to come over here.
It's I mean, I'm in the city all the time anyway because I'm always doing stuff, and I'll do a little events with companies and things, and it costs you, $40 just to park a normal car in a garage for a few hours, So it's a serious thing, I'm not into it anymore.
Yeah, you're saying about obviously getting your tools stolen, which is a massive thing over here. Is there any like worse instances? Obviously here you're not in the van, they break into the van, but does it go any further than that where they're coming up to you to steal your tools, or is it you leave your van in somewhere and they break in?
I don't think I was going to say, I don't think it's as bad as it is. And there's like that whole Instagram handle. What is it? Stolen Tools UK or something. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff. It's worse, I think, in the UK because here they'll break in or they'll steal your tools. There, they'll literally cut your van in half with a reciprocating saw and peel it open like a tin of beans,
Yeah.
But they don't really do that so much here. They'll smash a window and grab things or pry a door open.
If you catch them over there, are you allowed to shoot them if you're armed, if you got a license?
So no, okay,
right, okay.
I'm not saying you can't. I mean, if you come into my house, you're getting shot.
Yeah,
break into my house and I'm in here, you're not walking out. That's a fact. In Canada, no, they'll put you in prison. But if you break into my house, within arm's reach of where I'm sitting, you're not leaving.
Yeah.
As far as if somebody breaks into your car and then they try to run, you can't just shoot them because you will go to prison for murder.
But what about if your van?
What
about if your van's parked in your garage in your house, arm length away, and they're trying to get in the van, and you shoot them? Then, yeah, is that allowed? I
don't want to say it's allowed, but it's going to happen.
I'm really up for shooting thieves. That's what I'm getting at, Chris. Do you know what I mean?
I think if you're in that position, I don't think you'd do it. If they tried to harm
like I
you,
said, that's a tough
yeah,
thing to say. I mean, there's so many people depending on that situation that are going to try to prosecute you for
Yeah.
unnecessary force.
Mm.
And then there's going to be the other half of the people that are like, well, you shouldn't have done that.
Well,
It's just like all these people that get shot by the police, and they're like, the police. Well, you did pull a firearm on the cop.
yeah.
You did do that. It's like the best way to not be shot by the police is to not pull a gun and shoot the police.
Yeah. Or just like
It's
let them search you. Let them search you peacefully, and then just walk
yeah,
on. I've never understood
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
You just you close your mouth. You deal with what you deal with the police, and then you take them to court later, and then you try to sue them and make money.
Yeah.
You don't get yourself shot by telling them to buzz off and being
Yeah.
crazy and brandishing firearms. That's not ever going to be a good scenario for you. So
what
it's unlike what a lot of people think. It's not the general American people aren't just shooting people. It's
yeah.
usually people that aren't, for starters, have illegal firearms.
Yeah.
Anyone with a pistol permit here,
From what you see,
or
oh, go on, sorry.
anyone with a legitimate firearm here is more in tune with trying to preserve and be able to maintain and keep that permit than go out and shoot someone.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing like that. It's generally, certain demographics of criminals and certain areas where that's really happening. Like if you go to excuse me, Hunts Point in the Bronx or something, and you park your car or your van, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, you're going to come back and it's either not going to be there or there's not going to be anything in it.
Really?
It's not like that everywhere. It's just select places. And,
How do people get jobs done there?
how do we get jobs?
Done in them places where like 9 times out of 10 where your van's not going to be there or your tools, like, or people just don't go there.
I as far as from a plumbing company, I mean, if you go to some of those areas and you see the vans, I mean, they're generally just beat up, busted up, shite boxes that are spray painted and they've got
bit like my van. Bit like my van.
it's, it's you don't see a nice shiny Transit with BBS wheels and nice stereos and lettering in those areas. Usually it's generally some pretty rough looking unmarked white rusty old vans, and they probably don't have that much in there. It just wouldn't make sense to have certain things in certain areas.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's I mean, there's insurance and everything too, but it's
Yeah.
I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, I'd rather just stay away. I don't like to be bothered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Don't blame me.
I just don't need it. It's better for me to not be around it. It's bad enough I have to go to places like the city all the time. And for me, I have a 2005 Honda CRV with like 200 million miles on it. And when I go into the city with that car, if somebody hits it, I don't care. If somebody steals it, I'll get on the bus, I'll get on the train, and I'll come home. I could care less.
Yeah.
If you have a nice vehicle and things like that, it's stressful because you're always worried. It's
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to sound like a fear mongerer, but it's if you have nice things, don't go to the city with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. I like my mate bought a watch the other week, a really expensive watch, and I went, why? Why are you going to take that out? You're never going to wear it. You live in the city. You're never going to wear it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I know people like their material things, but I think to myself, is it worth it? Because people are getting stabbed out here for like wearing a nice like Rolex or something. They get bumped, don't they, in the street just for like because they've been clocked with it on their hand. You can't have anything nice.
No. What
Have you got? I was going to ask a question. So you've got family, yeah? You got kids? You got family man, etc. Your kids going to go into plumbing or anything like that?
I've got now that just started freshman year at St. Louis University, in the Midwest, and going to be a teacher. And I've got my other 2 younger boys. Not really sure what they're, what they're all they care about right at the moment is hockey.
Yeah.
And so one, we'll see. I don't see them wanting at this point to go into plumbing,
Yeah.
but I'm sure my older boy is going to be in the van soon and learning some stuff and making some money, and we'll see how it goes from there. But he's looking to go to, a Division I college hockey program and try to, do something else, but we'll see.
Is that your sport of choice? Hockey? Is that your sport of choice? Is that what you follow? Or yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, yep.
What team do you support?
You don't even know this.
I'm a New York Rangers fan,
Right.
so yeah, I know it's not that popular out there for you guys, but it's at least the Northeast is pretty big with hockey. We have 3 NHL teams in New York State, so it's a pretty big hockey place. It's not the same as like American football, which I could care less about.
Yeah.
Same thing like baseball. I liked baseball when I was a kid, but to watch it, it's so slow and boring. It's
a lot of it's
doesn't
too
really do
a lot
it
of
for
it's
me.
too commercialized as well now, isn't it? Like football out here, like soccer, as you like call it, right? they it's so much money been pumped into it. It sort of like takes the the actual game. Look, watching in my opinion, watching the game now, it takes that focus off of the game where it was all about the football and the sport, and now it's all about the money and who's got the most money, and the fans are having to pay extortionate amounts of money to watch it. A lot of the places are corporate and things like that, and I don't know if that's the same with the the NFL.
NHS.
Yeah, I was going to say the NHL. I said meant the NFL.
Yeah. It's not as bad with the NHL, but with the NFL for sure it is. It's a racket. I mean, even like the Super Bowl, which is like their championship that they do for football. I mean, all this stuff that you could tell a lot of it's scripted and they're coerced into losing games,
Right.
for the rating. It's
Don't make
it's
it
a
the
joke.
same, does it?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to piss off any American that listens to this, but
There's only one.
American football is a joke.
Yeah.
And again, it's a game that should last an hour, and it takes 6 hours for a game. All they do is blow whistles and sit there, and
Yeah. Is it 6 hours? Is it?
There's no.
It's not like rugby, is it?
Crazy.
Not like rugby. They wear pads and helmets and everything, don't they? Like Kieran plays rugby. He's like a brute of a man.
I've got a friend of mine played rugby until he just got smashed up to the point where he couldn't play anymore. But
that's what happened.
I got another friend that played rugby too in college, and he's got mild brain damage now from it. But yeah, they beat the snot out of each other. Rugby by far is 10 times more brutal than American football.
Yeah.
It's a crazy sport. What sort of putting you on the spot? What's the craziest thing you've seen on a job or going to work? Is there a story you can think of that's?
I mean, I've seen all sorts of crazy things. I've come out and seen appliances, gas appliances in basements with no exhaust flue at all, just exhausting into the basements for years.
Yeah, we've seen some of that.
Do you get a lot of people doing work out there that's not gas registered?
Yes, over here all the time. And specifically in my area, get a lot of work out of that kind of stuff, because in the cities, every time you sell a house or something, or if it's more than 2 families dwelling, every 2 years they have an inspection that comes in, and we see all the stuff that's not right, and then we have to pull permits and fix all the work and charge the customer to redo all the stuff that they just paid the unqualified guy to come in and do. So
do you think that's a lot of the do you think that's a lot of the actual like people who are living there doing it off their own back, or do they just get cheap people in, or the landlords get cheap people in? Or
but it all comes out in the wash. Like I said, if you list a house for sale, the city has documentation of all these houses. So if you have a 2-bath, 3-bedroom house and it goes on the market years later and it's 3.5 bath, that right away you get flagged. We come in and then they say, okay, there's no permits. Or who did the work? They start handing out fines. If nobody, relinquishes the names,
Oh,
they still
really?
have to hire someone like me with a license to come in, and they need me to either sign to start a permit and sign off on the work. But again, if the sheetrock's, if I can't see what's there, I'm not assuming liability for that property. So a
Exactly.
lot of times
That's the
a lot of
thing
times
here.
we're going to rip stuff out,
Yeah,
and
because you
really cost people money.
yeah, well, you don't want to put your name to something else, do you? Because you don't know what pipe they've run under the floor. You don't know if they've just run a hose pipe to the under the floor to the boiler or anything, and you putting your name
Right.
to something on somebody else that's done something wrong that you can't see. That's what a lot of us don't want to do.
We speak a lot about tools over here. What's the brand of tools that you use?
I use a lot of.
Different.
I'm particular with tools, but I'm not like the kind of guy that's like, oh, you got to have the Wera crack form screwdriver. I mean, I'm fine with a
Like
channel
power
lock
tools.
screwdriver, and I've got all that stuff, and I've got all the. I mean, I do like the Knipex stuff, of course. The Cobras and the pliers wrenches are dynamite. You can't. I mean, there's just nothing out there better than I've ever seen, and I try everything. But I've got all the fancy German stuff and everything else, and a lot of times I just go back to my same basic stuff that I'm used to using. But the Knipex stuff is the most superior water pump pliers that we use, in my opinion, and nothing different from you guys really. We use probably a lot more rigid pipe wrenches and things like that because they're the best. They're threading equipment and stuff. But I use a lot of European stuff too, a lot of Rems tools, a lot of Rothenberger stuff. My tripod is actually set up on my new Bachelor service kit that I was fortunate enough to get, which I'm looking forward to using.
Right, yeah. What power tools are you using? What power tools do you use out there?
I use, again, I'm an exception. I use a lot of the German Metabo stuff. I also have Milwaukee stuff, and I have some DeWalt stuff. I like my Metabo drills better than anything else, to be honest with you. I feel like they've held up really well.
That's what PB uses.
I know, like Andy.
Yeah, PB uses Metabo a lot of Panhard.
Andy Cam uses Metabo stuff. The German Metabo stuff in this country isn't. You don't really see it. You don't see it often. It's mostly guys with either the Ryobi or the Milwaukee or DeWalt or Makita or something like that. Generally. So, but I like certain things. I like how they work, and I like getting the stuff I want and I like, so I go to lengths where if it's not at Home Depot here, a lot of guys aren't buying it.
Right. Get you. That sounds.
I don't know how particular you are with your tools.
I'm not. I'm very bad with my tools. I don't really renew my toolkit much. I bought a new Makita multi-tool the other day, which I'm quite pleased to have renewed because my one with the cable died on me. But I very much stay to Makita in power stuff, and like you, Knipex. Some people call it Nipex out here, don't they? Barco spanners, etc. And I
use those also.
Yeah, I'm not too fussed about like you, like screwdrivers. Now I've got Wera stuff, but I'm not fussed about it. I think I got it at a tool show for whatever reason, and I'm not what we call a tool chav. Do you know what I mean? I'm not into my tools like some people. Some people are really into them, aren't they? Some people just go out every week. I want to get a new tool, but I've never really been into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What about?
I mean, I am, and I like trying all the stuff, but again, a lot of the stuff I buy, I end up giving it away. It's like there's certain things I've been using for decades that I just prefer.
Yeah.
There's certain things I'd prefer to just hand saw than go out to get a battery tool. There's certain, things like that I have my preferences, even though I have all the Wera screwdriver sets. I prefer a regular acetate plastic handled, American made screwdriver.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
What's sort of the main boiler manufacturers out there? So sort of what's the go-to, like the bigger brands?
As far as tankless boilers in this area, I mean, Navian is really popular, mostly because of the price. I like Bosch. Bosch and Wiesmann would be my higher end installs, and then Navian would be the people that it's significantly less. cost to do a Navian, and
You see
that
them
would
over
be
here, don't you,
probably
at
the
installer
3
show?
biggest tankless gas boilers that we would install around
You
here,
don't,
for me at least.
You don't have Valent out there. Do you have Valent out there? Valent boilers?
I actually have a Valent that doesn't require electricity in my garage.
Oh, right.
It's an old school, it's in the 1980s. You guys were far ahead of us with tankless water heaters and things like that.
Yeah.
So we had a brand called Paloma
Right.
in the 80s, and they lasted 30, 40 years, some of these tankless water heaters. And they literally just had fire open in them. When you take the cover off, I mean, you could toast marshmallows.
Yeah.
And that was our early stuff. And we had Valent and we had Paloma. And to get a Valent boiler here now, I don't know anyone that sells them here.
Right.
We do have variations of Ideal, but they're pretty much rebranded triangle tube.
Yeah.
Which is what we've got. And then our Bosch is different, even I think, than like the Worcester that you use. Different heat exchanger styles and stuff like that. The Viessmann stuff is all pretty much the same water tube heat exchangers and what you're used to seeing. Yeah. So we use a lot of the Bosch Green Star here, or I do. Like I said, a lot of times with tankless stuff, guys are using rebranded Takagi, Japanese ones and stuff like that, but or Navian. But I've had enough frustration with some of these units over the years where I'd rather use more serviceable, longer lasting equipment like the German boilers, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been interesting, mate. Yeah, we've really enjoyed this. We are probably going to have to wrap it up because I think we're going to lose you again in a minute. And you've obviously got to get on with your bits and bobs over there. But really want to say thanks for joining us, Chris. And yeah, it's been nice speaking to you directly on the podcast. So
yeah, thank you. Have you been to the UK?
I haven't. I could have went a bunch of different times. I have family members going there, and I was like, I got stuff to do, and now I should have. But I'll get there soon.
Well, maybe when we go to America one day, we'll catch up with you.
Yeah.
Kieran wants to go to America.
Don't catch. If you come to America and don't catch up to me,
I'll definitely catch up with you if I go to America. If I come to America, I'll definitely catch up with you. Definitely.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
I
Yeah.
was going to try to come to Installer last year.
I know we spoke about it, didn't we? We did speak about it.
Oh, you're right. But I just wasn't able to make it happen. It's just between my kids' hockey traveling every weekend and all the American shows that we do, it's just like it's a lot of time away from work, and it just didn't work out. But maybe next year I can get to Installer for sure. That would be something on my list.
That'd be cool, man.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go to the other one out there. We're going. What was your one called?
AHR is the one that you would want to go to for sure. That's where all the boilers and
that's what
all the good stuff is at.
We got to bring the podcast out to AHR. That's what we've got to do. We've got to go international.
It's a thing. It's massive, and there's a lot of people, and any big names you would see people there for sure.
Yeah.
Is there many podcasts in the construction industry out there?
There's quite a few, yeah. Make Trades Great Again podcast is one of my favorites. That's my buddy Eric Awney from Mechanical Hub.
Yeah.
And that's a really good one. You should check out if you
we'll have a look
watched
at that.
it.
Yeah, we'll have a look. Yeah.
All right,
sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Chris. Thanks,
if anyone
mate.
wants to find you, where do they find you on Instagram?
What's your handle on Instagram? Do you want to give
at PS the Plumber on all platforms.
Socials? PS the Plumber.
Nice. Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Cheers, Chris. Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, this has been another episode of Off the Job Podcast.
Thanks for watching the show on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and all other streaming platforms.
If it's your first time watching or not, make sure to subscribe below and follow us on all the big social media stuff like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
For our overtime show on Monday, send us in your stories and comments for it to be read out on the show. Send it in via email, direct message through our social media accounts, or WhatsApp us on 07457 406 259.
And we'll see you on the next episode.